So back in the 1800s, Mendeleev was developing a way to present the elements. The periodic table of elements was created from that very long, drawn-out conversation back in history. One of the challenges that they knew about then was isotopes. Other elements that look the same as their brothers or sisters, however you need to coin that term. So carbon, for instance, we've heard conversationally about carbon-12 and carbon-14. It is very hard to measure. It's not a simple science, but it is also a very old science. It is still used to do dating back in time on specific types of samples for a specific date range. Other isotopes are used to do other date ranges because we know so much more about how those isotopes act and react, where they are in the environment and how they can move. So when he built that table, they knew about isotopes, them, the conspiracy people, and they didn't ignore it. But it's such a hard thing to present that they did ignore it. So how did we know these things decayed, went away and changed? It was actually physical chemistry and chemical separations that identified these things. We didn't have other measurement techniques at the time nearly as sophisticated as what came along. So the periodic table is absolutely right. But there's a nuance in there. When we learned about these decay properties of some pretty specific elements, right? Madame Curie is a good example of a learning experience. She was around at the time that those periodic table was presented as an instructional tool, as a reference tool for all of the world. It fits everywhere. Nobody that sees that periodic table that has been exposed to it doesn't understand it. To some degree, right? There's carbon on there, there's oxygen on there. We know those are things out in the environment. There's compounds of these elements called compounds, right? It's elements stuck together. They hang out together until they've got a good reason not to hang out. So these isotopes, as we learned about this decay, as we learned through the study and the sciences and the equations matching reality, we learned about these decay properties of other elements, so many other elements. This decay became a part of regular conversations in some circles, how it works, what it does, how much energy is there, energy transfers. So now more and more of these elements get mapped for their lifetimes. Or better said, is their half-lives, how long an element lasts. When that element is done, when it expires, when it dies, when it passes on, all of the energy in that element is moved, displaced somewhere else. It never disappears, disregarding other equations because we're at a subatomic level. So these elements, almost all elements, decay. If they are marked as stable, as you dig into a periodic table and learn more about some of the things that informs those isotopic abundances, how much of an element that is an effect of decay. So we've learned more and more elements decay as we've learned to measure longer periods of time. We've learned more about these elements, how they interact and how they work. So at a chemistry level, these can matter, but it's a very specific chemistry level. This isn't your desktop chemistry. This is cyclotrons and separation, material separations, and to commercialize, to build bombs. So, or to build medical treatments, to be used as part of medical treatments. So this isotopes, these elements, we have known about them for generations. We began to understand more and more of them, and that general knowledge out to people stopped, seemed to have stopped. It depends on where you went to school, what your background is, what your experience is, what your curiosity level is. Why are you even curious about this? So it's exposure to these concepts, especially in early years, that I think can make a difference. Concepts, general ideas, there's lots of them out there. There's concepts about community and how it's formed. There's concepts about the sciences. There's concepts about the arts, how we look at things, what perspective we paint from, or the point of pointillisms. Need more coffee. Peace is out. Hope you enjoyed.